So, dear friends, dear students, we have some questions of my students on the ongoing crisis of COVID-19 and its relationship with the economy because we are student of commerce and we are right now discussing Indian financial system. So, Amina has some questions. Just Amina, put up your question.
So my question is that because we every has business cycle has a stage, and there's a speculation, and also IFS has, IMF has also said that we are very near to recession, and there are 53% chances of recession, and it would be more fastened because of COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah, that's
Yes.
like what like because there was a great depression around 2008 and 2009. It was for 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it was and so I'm wondering if it would be a big recession this time because it is more impacted because of the pandemic,
Yes.
and Indian economy is already on its lows right now.
Okay. So, what is your specific question? Means you want comments on your
Like
basis.
what are your thoughts about it? Like what do you think according to your research or knowledge? Because it's
Uh,
like
Obviously, already the world going in a kind of was going into a kind of economic slowdown. For 2020, the early projections of IMF in 2019 were that there will be average growth rate between 3 to 3.5% of the world, which was very low. But considering this pandemic, obviously now it will be between 1 to 2%. The what we are estimating right now with respect to the future. And in India, the real GDP growth rate was around between 2 to 3%. The rate which which is publicized is the current rate of GDP, which is more popular. But if we go to the real rate of GDP, which is inflation adjusted rate of GDP, it was only around between 2 to 3%. If you go to the recent book by Subramaniam Swamy, that is Reset. Okay, he also talks about these economic challenges and the slow rate of growth. So this is something which is very acceptable that we are into a global economic slowdown as well as a national economic slowdown, and this pandemic will always have a very negative impact on the economy and the growth, and not only economy and growth, but it will be having a huge impact on our social life, on political systems, etc. For example, if you go to the history, what history says about it, I'll just show it to you if it is available over here. That according to historical evidence, for this, I will just suggest you all to read the Economic History of India, okay, by
okay.
Roy. If you see in Economic History of India, if I am not wrong, between page number 272, yes, this is there. 273 page number is the epidemic diseases. Okay, so in 1896, 1938, a plague came in India, and in 1938, first time pandemic word was used in India, and around 20 million people died in that. In 1938, I'm talking about just before independence. Three epidemic India has witnessed. One is cholera, plague, and the third one is malaria. These three pandemic has taken lots of millions of life in India. And if you study the economic pattern at that particular period of time, particularly 1938, you will see that it has huge economic and social impact on the economy. Particularly, uh, the most affected people are the poor people, because these epidemics happen in crowded places, whether it is malaria. Now malaria, plague, cholera all happens because in dirty places, crowded places are more dirty places. So it is a kind of bidirectional relationship, that if you are living in a crowded place, it will be more dirty. If you are living in a dirty place, it will obviously be more crowded. Like these kind of things are there. So because that problem was a major problem in urban slums, so it is sure that we are heading for a great economic challenge, not only just India, but the whole world. But obviously, when we have challenges, we try to sort out and come out with certain solutions. And that's why lots of stimulus packages in the world has been announced by respective governments, as well as the World Bank, IMF is going to announce stimulus packages for the developing and underdeveloped countries. So that may
Okay.
sort out some problem. Yes,
And so, as far as SBI concerns, like apart from the pandemic, we were already, India is already facing the crisis of low developments. And because SBI is one of the banks that is like too big to fall. And people
that
have
is
too big to fall. Like these
okay.
are one of the banks that is too big to fall. But household people are losing their trust in these banking system nowadays, and there are campaigns, and I've read one of the speeches of Raghuram Rajan saying that why financial inclusion and literacy is important, but still now this current scenario, like I'm seeing people who are like, no, I'm going to get all my money because they are not trusting the bank. And like there can be so, and also I am not very sure about what are the rules and regulations of these banking system. Like whenever, like for example, Yes Bank had a thing. So, and they were like, even if you had like 2 crore bank money in your bank, in your account, but you can only withdraw, you can only claim up to 1 lakh. And there is certain thing that people don't know um, about the rules and regulation that bank can impose when it can go bankrupt.
Okay, so you said that it is too big to fall. First of all, this particular adage, it is known as adage too big to fall, has already fallen in the world economic crisis of 2008. Why? Because there were five large investment banks, and out of those five, three were very popular with this adage that they were too big to fall, but they all fell down, they all collapsed. So this is not a thing that any big thing cannot collapse. A big thing always has some Achilles heel, so it can always collapse. So that is not the thing which we should be ready to. And if we assume that something will not fall, it will obviously fall, because then we start not caring about it. So that should not be our
Hmm.
approach. Okay, but yes, people are losing trust. That's quite right. And that is why, because of that, the International Monetary Fund and banking agencies have suggested that strictly the Basel 3 norms. You can afterwards go and read what is Basel 3 norms. The Basel 3 norms related to capital and debt and the balance sheet of banking, of a commercial bank, needs to be strictly followed. And this Basel 3 was means updated after the world economic crisis, uh, considering the fact that what kind of risks are associated with a bank. And government is at the epitome of a banking system. It is the responsibility and duty of a government to tackle these things. If government
Yeah.
takes good charge of these things, they can obviously solve these problems. These are major problems, but these are not problems that cannot be settled down. If you see the world economic crisis, it was a crisis. It had negative impact on everyone, but it was ultimately sorted out, though we had to pay a heavy cost. And even if the government would have taken some measures before the crisis, when the bubble was expanding, it would not have actually happened, or even if it would have happened, not at that high level. So that kind of thing is there. So we expect that the monetary agencies and the government and other civil societies who are working in the area of banking and finance, they will come together to sort out this problem. Regarding the legal aspect of banking system, I am not very specifically aware about these legal systems, so it would not be right for me to comment on that. But I don't think that the rules are such that they are against people. I don't think they are against people. They are in favor of the people, because the rules want to maintain a banking system. And if you want to maintain a banking system, it is very important to build trust with the people. So trust is the most important thing. So the ingredients of trust are there, but how we are going to maintain that, that is quite a big challenge for all of us. Any other question?
So also one last.
Okay.
So is it true that recession would affect more developed countries rather than developing countries like India? Like the recession would not be greater effect to India. Is it true?
It's difficult to answer specifically because we don't know until it comes to a particular country. We can just expect on certain assumptions that it will be affecting more a developed country and a developing country, but as we say that all generalizations are wrong, including this one. So it's not, we cannot give a very specific answer. For example, if you take the list of developed countries, you have United States of America being a developed country. France is also a developed country. But United States of America
Hmm.
is independent financially and economically, but France is not, because France is part of European Union. Okay, which is not a monetary union but a fiscal union. It is a comprehensive combination of 27 countries. So the structure of France and USA is quite different. So within developed country we have lots of differences between the countries. So it's not easy to say that recession will be affecting negatively the developed country or not the developing countries. Okay, and within developing
Okay.
countries you have lots of variation. For example, China is also developing country, India is also developing country, but the GDP of China in nominal terms is 10 times of the GDP of India. Okay, so it's not easy to
Yes, sir.
talk about these things. What we can say in generic, in a very general perspective, is that recession is going to affect everybody in a very negative manner. Okay,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
specifically where there will be less recession, where there will be more, it is very technical and it will take time for us to decide. Okay, any other question?
Okay.